I'm sorry. Okay? I'm sorry. 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 I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, okay?
Hey, you. Welcome back to I'm Sorry, Okay? A podcast where we are watching so much Degrassi. I'm Mary here with Paul and LD. This week we watched Season 2, Episode 2 of Degrassi Junior High, A Helping Hand. This episode was written by Jan Moore, directed by Kit Hood, and originally aired on January 11th, 1988. Content warning for this episode. We'll be discussing an inappropriate student-teacher relationship and sexually predatory behavior. If you want to avoid this content, you may want to skip this episode. In this episode, Lucy is pleased when a new teacher gives her special attention until she becomes aware of his sexual intentions. Wheels gets new glasses and his band, the Zit Remedy, gets a new bass player.
Okay, can I just say, right off the bat, we have a non-Arthur and Yick B-plot this week.
Yes, it's true. Finally.
How stoked
and it's
were
so
you?
much-
Nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, that's true. They're like not even in this episode. I mean, I think they're in the background, but like we don't have to hear from them at all.
It was such a welcome respite.
Yeah, what a relief. A new glasses B plot, like I'm totally here for it.
Me too.
Relatable.
Is the glasses the B plot? I felt like the Stephanie's clothes was the B plot.
No, Stephanie's clothes is like a very small
Like
thing.
a C
That's
plot?
like a C. Yeah, I was gonna say we may have an A, B, and C plot
Okay.
in this episode.
I would say
I mean,
like B.1.
When Arthur and Yick
Yeah.
aren't there, there's just a huge hole in all of our hearts. We miss them so much that we need multiple secondary plots.
But like, look at the amount of character development that happened in this episode when we didn't have to waste like 7 cumulative minutes of these two weenies like doing some kind of silly antic.
Look, nerds deserve representation too. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, I
They
think
are
we'll-
overrepresented in the B plots,
Exactly. I was
okay?
gonna
They
say,
are
yeah.
overrepresented. This is
It's
like
an over-representation problem.
This is like when Grey's Anatomy introduced like an evangelical Christian character and people were like, oh my God, I'm so glad we finally have representation. And I was like, that's all of America, dude. Like,
Look, I just want to know what the dudes are up to every week, okay?
Well, I'm sure that next week they'll get into some sort of hijinks.
love a hijink.
All right, so we open this episode in Radich's class, but there is no Radich. The Zit Remedy and their matching sweatshirts are talking about someone from a record company wanting to hear their band. But Snake wonders how he'll feel when he finds out that they only have 2 songs. Are we aware of a second Zit Remedy song?
I am not.
Absolutely not. And I need this B-side right now.
Yeah.
Maybe it never got out of the workshopping phase.
I feel like whoever wrote Everybody Wants Something just did not have another hit in them.
Understandable.
I'm
They
like,
already
listen, that's
wrote-
okay.
yeah.
That's
It's
like
a
a
universal
career
song.
making. Yeah.
Yeah, what more is there to say? Everything's covered in that one song.
Everybody
The
wants
entire human
something.
experience.
Yeah.
All right, so then Lucy comes in and announces to everyone that Radich is in the hospital having his appendix taken out, and it was apparently just in time. In the meantime, they're going to have a substitute teacher. Mr. Colby walks in and interrupts their conversation to tell them that he'll be their teacher for the next while.
Okay, here's what I love. I love that they're all trading stories of all of their like uncool subs that they had before. And then Lucy is just like, they're all just fossils and losers who can't get a real job. Just as this like very average middle-aged man walks in and they're all just like, oh, wow. Like they're all captivated by this just like average dad man.
Average dad and his average sweaters.
Okay, I actually do like this sweater. And then later at the end of the episode, he has a book ending like the same sweater, but gray.
Yeah, it's like in a different color.
Yeah.
It's quite the collection.
He's probably got a capsule wardrobe.
Mm-hmm.
Good for him. Minimalism is good.
Also, when they're discussing the previous substitutes, one of the twins mentions a sub who would get so nervous every time he would get close to a girl, which seemed like a little bit of foreshadowing to me because
Kind
it
of a weird
seemed like,
detail.
right? Like an adult teacher should not be getting nervous around
Like visibly
teenage
nervous
students.
where the student is noticing.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
a lot.
So it seems like there's already an issue of background checks on these substitute teachers.
They were not properly vetted. Like, this doesn't
No.
track for me because, like, okay, I'm 35. Even when I'm talking to someone who's like 30, I feel like Cranky Kong in Donkey Kong Country when they like check in and he's on the rocker on the porch telling them like, do, 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 do. Yeah. And he's like telling them what level to go to next. Like, I turn into a geriatric. So I don't understand how you could be even minimum, like at your youngest, like 22, having just graduated college, being a sub, you know what I mean, and being like intimidated by a 13-year-old girl, being like, ooh, this is
very weird.
this is awkward.
I'm close to a girl.
I'm going to try and broach something that I think is an important detail in this episode, but also kind of messed up, at least at the beginning, like the front end of it, where this guy is actually just a really good teacher, it seems like. Like the way he walks into the room, like, yeah, maybe like maybe like you were saying, like the girls kind of instantly have a crush on him or get the little hard eyes or whatever. But to me, I actually just saw that as like he just walked into the room with like a lot of confidence, and he didn't even have to like say anything to get the kids to like sit down and pay attention. And like that's like a real teaching skill that like one has to develop. Like that's not like, it's not like he's a mind control like freak or something. Like that's like how teaching works, and like the way you carry yourself and present yourself signifies to a classroom of children like how they should behave. And Radich obviously never had that, and so these kids are like seeing this and they're responding to it. It's kind of frustrating that like, I get it, they have to sort of compare and like contrast this guy to Radich to make it clear that he's very different from Radich and that he just can't be trusted. But like, there's just a couple scenes at the beginning where it's just really unfortunate that they make this guy into such a good teacher, but then he's also just a tragic piece of shit.
Yeah, Radich had more of a like call and response. So he's like a lot more like authoritative in his approach to like dealing with the students. And it seems like Mr. Colby has more of like a personable approach. And actually, let's get more into it. So in the next scene, the next day in class, Mr. Colby is handing back essays with like cute little commentary for each one. And he even jokes about Joey's paper, which was supposed to be nonfiction but wasn't, rather than criticizing him like Radich might do. So yeah, what do we think about Radich and Colby's teaching styles at this point?
I mean, I still think it's weird to announce, even if someone's making progress, like I still think that's weird to announce it to the class. So when I was taking notes on this, I just wrote, Mr. Colby is handing stuff back and says he sees improvement in Spike's work. Did Radich put in his notes that the sub also has to announce everyone's progress to the whole class?
Yeah.
And obviously we see the difference. We see that he is in stark contrast just in his feedback, but also it's just like, we're still not totally there.
To me, it's like it might have just been a teaching method that it was in effect at this time period.
Yeah,
and to me, it felt like real feedback that like maybe another student could actually use when approaching a future paper. Like, oh, I remember that he told Joey that you need to stick to like a specific element of the project, and that's actually like helpful information for everyone, rather than just being like, Joey, you're stupid.
Yeah, it's true. And I do think he's very clearly set himself apart from Radich. He's much more personable. He's very chill. Like he doesn't seem like Radich just is always very uptight and seems very
annoyed.
Stressed.
Yeah. Angry.
But also Radich may have been at this a bit longer. Like, I don't know, like Colby's a substitute. He's not a full-time teacher. So he also does have kind of the luxury of dropping in and out of classes.
I don't know. Time for the urine, Radich. I don't know.
Ooh, I mean, he's currently in the hospital, Paul.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, if he really can't handle it, like, I don't know.
I mean, Doris thinks he's going to be okay, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. So after class, a bro approaches LD asking if she's going to play baseball. But she's kind of like, nah, not this week, maybe next week. And then Lucy is excited because she's never gotten an A+ before. Her friends say they thought she didn't care about grades. And Lucy, a future leader of Antifa, says she doesn't care about grades because they're fascist, but it's nice to get a good one every once in a while.
I mean, yeah, grades are part of a fascist white supremacist system of standards, so.
Absolutely.
She's
There
not
is
wrong.
no such thing as like merit, really. There's no meritocracy.
As we learned from the stereotypes episode.
And also life.
And this is also, I think, when they're kind of talking about Mr. Colby, and one of the girls describes him as the sexiest man at Degrassi, like in those sweaters.
That's honestly, it's a no from me. But I also think that like getting a sub is really exciting because like we talked about this in a past episode. I think we talked about it with the Miss Avery episode. Like the standards are so low on a teacher, all they have to do is be like average looking forever. And it's basically the same way that we all, after watching, CNN for a week, started to think everyone on CNN was like a sex symbol. Like we all were like so worried about the election, and we were just like, oh, hey, guy with your whiteboard.
Wolf Blitzer, hello.
If you're forced to just
Hubba.
sit and listen to someone like talk for hours every week, like sure, you start to think about like what they look like and rank them compared to your other teachers, I guess.
I suppose. I do remember that I had a friend who really wanted people to rate him on ratemyprofessor.com with the little chili pepper. Like, do you remember that, it would have normal stuff like this person gives hard tests or whatever.
Right,
but then
right,
you
right.
could also optionally give them a little chili pepper
I don't know.
for being hot.
Yuck. No.
Gross.
That's just reinforcing what we're seeing in this episode. No.
At least in college, it's presumably all adults, but it's still inappropriate.
Yeah, inappropriate dynamic, but okay.
Middle school or like junior high, it's like absolutely like not what should be happening. So next, the Zit Remedy is practicing, but Wheels has to leave to go to a tutoring session with Miss Avery. Miss Avery asks about an eye appointment and tells him starting Monday they'll be meeting for a half hour after school every day to study. Wheels is worried about missing band practice, but Miss Avery has already talked to his parents and they all agreed that he should quit the band until he gets his grades up because he's at risk of losing his year.
This sucks.
Yikes.
Yeah. We all got together and decided for you.
But also like a kid who's maybe not doing great in school who is really excelling in an extracurricular activity should be encouraged in that extracurricular activity because in general it will boost confidence. It makes them excited to come to school. You know what I mean? Like they practice at school. They're not practicing in someone's basement. Like he has to be at school to do it. I don't know. Like I don't think that taking away his band is necessarily going to improve his grades.
Like it could have been some other kind of compromise, like you can only practice on the weekends or you can only practice during school, because sometimes they do seem to be practicing during the school day. So they could have kind of said, tutoring is your priority. You'll have to find other time to practice with the band. But because she says he's at risk of losing his year, it sounds like it's pretty serious and he might actually get held back. So I can also see why his parents are just saying, for now, you have one priority, and that's making sure that you finish the semester.
I didn't know anybody who was in danger of losing their year in 8th grade. I feel like they do this a lot on the show. They talked last season about Rick being in danger of losing his year again. And I was just like, I don't know anyone in middle school. I didn't even.
I mean, they've
did
been
that.
setting this up for like a few episodes. Like in the season finale last season,
Right.
he's
Yeah.
like turning down a date because he's like, I gotta study. I don't know. So
Yeah.
Well,
it
and
sounds like
we're,
it's been a persistent issue, basically.
we're also learning that, like, yeah, so he's been having headaches and he's getting his eyes checked, and so that may have contributed to like what's been going on with him or why he hasn't been like as involved with his schoolwork, because he maybe just needed glasses this whole time.
Yeah.
Also, in this conversation, Miss Avery puts her hand on his
Yes.
hand. And I was wondering if you guys felt like this was to show us like a contrast between like the caring touch and like the more like treacherous.
Do you mean the old Biden touch? Yes, I do.
I think that that's the intention, but it doesn't work for me
No.
because, well, first of all, I think it's kind of sexist to imply that, you know, well, Miss Avery, she's a woman, and if she's touching you, it's because she's comforting you and supporting you. But when it's a male teacher doing it, it's like, then it's creepy, because it could very easily be a female teacher who's being inappropriate with a student. So I actually, it doesn't track for me, because I think that both things are like crossing a boundary.
I think I read the episode wrong because I didn't see it that way, but hearing y'all saying that, like, yes, that's probably what they were trying to say, like, Miss Avery is okay. But like for me, I felt like they were sort of calling out their own writing, where they were there's like a couple scenes like later on where they like directly contrast, like we're in Miss Avery's classroom and then we're in Creeper's classroom. And so I don't know, I read that as sort of like they were like sort of putting these two head to head in some sort of way. But yes, you're probably right, actually, that they were probably saying like what Miss Avery is doing is okay compared to this guy, and that sucks.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, though, because it does make it seem like there's just an overall boundary issue with teachers at Degrassi.
Yeah. It feels highlighted at the least, so I don't know.
All right, so next we move over to LD, who is brushing her hair in the girls' bathroom when Lucy walks in. So she asks her which way her hair looks better, in a low ponytail or a high one, but Lucy thinks both ways look nice. LD is not feeling herself, though.
No guy ever notices me, unless he wants to play baseball.
The old performative femininity is kicking in. I know it well.
Lucy offers to give LD a makeover because her dad bought her a bunch of neat stuff from New York, and makeovers are Lucy's #1 friend activity.
Lucy's always very encouraging. That's like, that was my
I will
note.
say she compliments LD, and she only offers the makeover when she when she finds out that LD's feeling kind of down about herself, and she's like, oh, you know, makeup would make you look a little glitzier.
I think I am only capable of viewing this through my own lens, and like the amount of like hot girls who have been like, let's do a makeover, to me has always been staggering. And I think Lucy's makeovers, both with Vula and with LD, have just been to make them more like her. And it's basically saying like, this is the standard by which you are measured. Like you either need to look like me as a woman, or like you are not going to be desirable. And I also think that, like, you know, I don't know. I guess I'm just kind of like, LD is feeling this way, maybe not even necessarily because she's not happy with herself, but it's more just like when you look around and you realize that you are different from all of the other girls and you don't really fit in because you're not, you know, performing femininity, that can be really difficult. And you start to feel like maybe you should be the one who needs to change because you're not, you know, you're not fitting in. But you know, I think that it is definitely someone's job to be like, just because boys don't like you right now in 8th grade and in this very small like terrarium of an environment doesn't mean that you should change yourself because the right person, you know, who's going to like you is going to like you for who you are and not for the like clown makeup that I'm
How
going to
much
put you
makeup
in mere moments. Like
Yeah.
it's an awful makeover, and it does not like, and here's the thing, even if LD did want to wear makeup, like we're going to see in a minute, but like that is not the makeup one would put on like a butch queen like LD.
Yeah.
Give her
And
that
Lucy-
like
Lucy actually doesn't even wear makeup.
no. I also love when Lucy says that her parents got her lessons, like got her makeup lessons.
Yeah, what does that
So
mean?
that's so 80s. That's like back in the day when people would go and like get their colors done. And then they would be like, oh, I'm a fall, spring.
And I think it's also that, you know, if someone expresses an actual interest in makeup, it's totally fine to support that. But yeah, trying to like push makeup on people who aren't specifically interested in it. Or like LD was asking about her hair, you know, so Lucy could have been like, oh yeah, let's try some different things for your hair. Like I get what you're saying, LD, where it did seem like she wanted to change up her look somehow because she was kind of like, boys aren't interested in me, and I agree with them. I wouldn't be interested in me either, but it seemed like she just sort of needed to like maybe just play around with her look a little bit rather than completely changing her appearance, which is like what ends up happening.
She needs to like get that curly girl method going. She's got that wavy bob. She can really harness the curls. Like I believe in LD, you know what I mean? And like she's just different from the other girls in her grade.
And I do think it can be, you know, if you're kind of not sure what to do with like the texture of your hair, it can be a thing where that can make a big difference, just having someone show you how to like work with your features. Like that can be like a really empowering thing. But unfortunately, yeah, it's not exactly the experience that she has. And I also do think it's interesting to compare this semester to last semester because, you know, now LD is like upset because guys don't notice her unless they want, it's about sports. But last season, it feels like she would have been upset if someone had been paying attention to her just because of her looks and not because of her athletic ability. But so we can see how she's sort of like changing in that now she's like more interested in boys in like a relationship like kind of way.
Still not buying she wants to date boys.
Well, and this guy asking her to play baseball, maybe that's his way of talking to her. It's not necessarily negative. Like, he wanted to know if she was, like, gonna be there. So that's even, like, that's a boy kind of showing interest in her.
Right? Like, maybe he has a crush on her because they're both good at baseball.
Exactly. Like, because they actually have a common interest.
Like, she doesn't express that there's any specific boy that she's interested in. She just wants boys to notice her. But I also think, like, I think that it can be very isolating to be like kind of a soft butch in like a high femme world. But yeah. I think that she doesn't necessarily need Lucy to put, you know, 17 different shades of blue on just her eyelid with no mascara or eyeliner.
All the way up to her eyebrows.
Gorgeous.
Lucy's just trying to be a pal. But yes, I totally see what you're saying.
Yeah, I guess I've sort of been on the other end of this situation where I've had friends like ask me to do their makeup. But I've never I've never looked at someone and offered them a makeover, which is, I think we can all agree is like rude and not helpful.
No, but you and I have had many conversations where I'm like, I really want to get some new clothes. And you're like, okay, let's mood board it.
Oh, totally. And like, it is all, I'm like, what are your interests? I would never try to like put you in something that I thought you would be uncomfortable in, but like, oh, I'm always here to discuss options and to help people find new clothes. So after school, LD and Lucy are talking on the front steps when Mr. Colby approaches them and puts his hand on Lucy's shoulder, telling her how much he liked her paper about her friend Vula moving away. Lucy tells him that they're still friends, though, and they're going to a movie on Saturday. LD is laser focused on his hand on Lucy's shoulder. And after he leaves, she tells Lucy she thinks it's creepy when teachers are too friendly, but Lucy says there's no such thing. So is this the first red flag with Mr. Colby?
Oh my God.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
And also, LD says he sure likes to touch you.
Oh, yeah, she does. And LD is being like very cautious in how she approaches Lucy, which is also understandable because Lucy she's not really ready to like receive this information. But like, I love LD in the background of like so many scenes. She's always just like staring at Mr. Colby with this like, it's just, I think it's just that feeling you get when you just get a bad feeling about someone and you're just kind of hyper vigilant of them and like what they're doing, because she just knows already like that something's wrong. When they get to Lucy's house, she plays her answering machine while grabbing snacks. There's a typical message from her mom telling her that her parents will be late again, but have left her some lasagna. And she also tells her not to make any plans for Saturday because they have a meeting with the lawyer for her shoplifting case.
This is dragging out forever, by the way. Like, this is a very long shoplifting experience.
Oh, yeah. She's still like dealing with this. It's like not resolved yet.
Also, can I just say, when they enter the house, LD says, I like your house. And Lucy says, thanks, I like it too, which is completely different from season 1, episode 2. So exactly one season ago, where Lucy's just like, oh, this dump? Which I think is such like a positive change for her. And also, like, by the way, a really great way to take a compliment. Like, I think that a lot of people accept compliments. So, you tell them like, oh, I like your shirt. And they're like, oh, it's old. Like, oh, I got it on sale.
Right,
Got it from the thrift store.
Yeah. And I it's like, thanks, I also like it. It's like a very good acknowledgement of a compliment.
Agreed. So there's also a message from Vula telling Lucy that she can't go to the movie and she's not allowed to see her anymore, but she'll call her in a few weeks when her parents get over it.
Vula is sorry, okay.
My parents sort of said I can't see you. So, sorry, okay?
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
she's
yeah,
sorry,
true.
okay?
But yeah, I guess this is, we find out in this episode that sadly Vula has moved away to the suburbs, never to be seen again.
Lucy like totally trashes the suburbs too, which I love.
I mean, the suburbs? Talk about tacky.
Oh, yeah.
She absolutely trashes the suburbs. So Lucy's doing LD's makeup while they talk about some deep shit. LD is asking about her family, and Lucy tells her that they actually spent a lot of time together after she got in trouble, eating dinner together and having family picnics, but then her parents got busy again. LD asks if she ever gets lonely, but Lucy tells her that she likes being alone because she's independent. They talk about missing Vula before LD leaves, but Lucy says she's changing anyway.
Yeah, the way that she's just sort of like, my parents didn't pay attention to me until I did something so attention seeking that they were forced to, and now they've kind of gone back to not paying attention to me again.
Yeah,
So-
now that she's like getting her grades up and doing better, they like stop paying attention to her.
But it's like now she's not going for that attention seeking behavior and that negative attention. She's instead seeking out like a proxy for like she's seeking out a different adult who will give her positive reinforcement, positive attention.
Yikes.
Can I also
And
just say,
he sees that too.
oh, he totally sees that. He reads her essay and is like, this is a vulnerable kid.
Exactly.
What were you going to say?
Oh, I was gonna say, can I just say, I feel like that like conversation between the two of them, like while Lucy's doing LD's makeup, is really good. Like it's such a good example of a conversation. Like LD is asking questions and follow-up questions, but also sharing about herself. Lucy's being very vulnerable. Like I think it's a very real conversation. And I think sometimes on shows like this, we don't really get like into stuff in the
Right.
dialogue. You know what I mean? So I just thought that was
Right,
a nice
because
one.
LD says that when her dad was in the hospital, she actually felt really scared being alone all the time.
We're kind of getting like, we got over the like hill of season 1 where we don't really know anything about these characters, so they're like building them. So now they're able to like reference stuff within the dialogue that makes them more three-dimensional with each other, but then also with us as the viewing audience. Wow.
When LD leaves, Lucy's given her a scarf, and LD thanks her for it, so she'll give it back. And Lucy's just kind of like, oh, it's fine, I've got loads or whatever. And I was just like, damn, Lucy giving another scarf away like she's on The Bachelor. Like she like
Will you accept this scarf?
It makes her friendships a little less genuine when you realize that every person that comes into her life, she gives them a makeover and then gives them a scarf.
She's got a routine.
Yeah.
I think it's also interesting that like everyone around Lucy can tell that she's lonely except for her parents. And whenever someone brings it up to her, she just kind of deflects and denies it. So even when Mr. Colby mentions it, she's like, oh, I'm still hanging out with Vula this weekend. And then when LD directly like asks her about feeling lonely, she's just like, oh, no, I'm independent. I like it. Even though we know that that's not really how she feels, because she's constantly trying to like invite friends over and like form relationships. LD, like you said, she's trying to find some kind of adult like figure in her life that like, you know, pays attention to her. But she really just can't admit that like, you know, that's kind of what's happening for her right now.
And I think her parents can't tell that she's lonely, A, because they're never ever there, and B, because they don't want to see it, and C, Lucy is probably putting on some amount of bravado for them.
Right, in the same way that she is for everyone else. Yeah. So in Mr. Colby's class the next day, they're debating whether the death penalty works as a deterrent to crime. While they're talking, yes, I think we can all agree it does not. While they're talking, LD notices Mr. Colby looking down Lucy's shirt. Yeah, this is kind of when their interactions start to be like specifically really uncomfortable and like difficult to watch.
Very inappropriate.
Love the open-ended and controlled class discussion. Hate everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll say.
It is a lively debate.
Yeah, and I think it's cool because it's a very heavy topic that most people wouldn't trust people that young to debate.
It's another example of, you know, Mr. Colby like generally doing a good job at teaching, but then it's whatever positive impression you might have is immediately ruined because he's clearly already like being extremely inappropriate and kind of like pretty out in the open at this point.
Bro.
I was actually surprised that nobody else noticed that specific thing because Lucy's at the front of the class, which means that everyone is facing her and everyone is facing him. But I think that the discussion is sort of a distraction because everyone's turned at different angles, talking to each other and kind of having these sort of sidebars about the death penalty. But I do like that LD caught it, or someone caught it.
Because she's already like trusting her instincts. She already has a bad feeling about him, and she's specifically worried about him with Lucy and how he's behaving towards Lucy. So she's like really like watching out for her friend. Yeah. So after class, Steph asks Alexa when she's going to give her clothes back and calls her a thief. Steph is just do we need to talk about Steph? She's just like, for all the changes that she's claiming to be making, she's really like not changing how she interacts with other people at all. It's still like all about her.
She gave Alexa the clothes, basically like forced them out of her life. Someone took them. She's jealous that person is receiving positive attention from them.
You're just jealous.
And, you know, to me, it has very like big Trump refusing to concede the election energy. It's like completely ignoring.
She's creating her own reality. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very, for me, it's frustrating to watch, and I think we can move on.
Yeah.
I'm just like, shut up.
This is, we don't need this C plot, but it's there. So Wheels tells Joey and Snake that his parents won't let him play music until his grades are better, but he tells them that they can keep playing without him. But Joey says it's not the Zit Remedy if they're missing a zit.
This is a good B plot, I think, if we've decided that this is a B plot, because band drama is like a very real but like very specific thing that like I don't think it could really carry an entire episode. Maybe I'll be proven wrong at some point, but like it's such a like it's such a very, I don't know, specific relationship, and like Wheels being sidelined and them, oh man, we can't possibly play like without you. Like that's so real. Like that development is like, it's such its own thing, and like really not underrepresented maybe, but I don't usually see these sort of like social dynamics happening on TV. Also, as far as the blocking of this scene goes, Simon walks past right as Wheels is saying, you guys could maybe play without me. And Simon kind of does a little like head check. He like just sort of tilts his head toward the conversation. And as we'll see later, this kid is noticing that like he probably knows that he saw them. Simon was standing by Alexa watching them practice. So he knows that Wheels is the bassist. And as we see later, this dude plays the bass.
Yeah, this maybe plants the idea in his head, like, maybe I should also practice at school. Like,
this was actually Tom Hanks's inspiration for That Thing You Do.
Hell yeah.
So also while they're talking, they notice that Lucy has stayed behind and is talking very closely with Mr. Colby, and everyone feels weird about it. Joey says, Lucy and Colby together again. And Wheels says, he sure seems to like her. It's kind of weird. And
hell yeah, Wheels.
It is.
It is kind of weird.
It's also really unfortunate that it's so obvious to the other students that the student-teacher relationship is weird, but as usual, none of the adults are paying attention.
I mean, there's no one overseeing him. Like, there's nobody observing him because he's not a student teacher. You know what I mean? Like, he's a substitute. So he's able to just kind of do what he wants. There's really no one holding him accountable right now.
Yeah.
Right. So LD is waiting for Lucy after school. Lucy walks out with Mr. Colby, who has his arm around her shoulder and is telling her she's really bright and sensitive. And she can feel free to talk to him anytime.
No.
LD is now fully concerned and tells Lucy that she saw Mr. Colby look down her top in class. But Lucy doesn't believe her and thinks she's just jealous.
Finally, teacher likes me, and you're trying to spoil it. Thanks a lot.
I'm not trying to spoil it. I just think you should be careful. That's all.
Yeah, being friends with you.
What'd I do?
You're too chicken to wear makeup, and you're too chicken to talk to boys. You're just jealous.
Well, at least I don't shoplift.
See if I ever help you again.
You know, obviously, LD has no business throwing Lucy's mistake in her face like that. And I don't think that LD actually does judge that Lucy has done that, but she just wanted to hurt her.
Punching out of your weight class, if you ask me.
Yeah.
LD really put herself out there to warn Lucy. And so I think she's just really hurt by her reaction.
Exactly.
But Lucy also, hearing this information, it must just make Lucy feel really weird. And she's maybe, placing the blame on herself. It's obviously not her fault in any way, but I could see her reaction being like she kind of has a reaction of like, that's gross, like, ew, like, why would you say that? And it makes her feel uncomfortable, and I think she just doesn't know what to do with those feelings in that moment. And it's very much like shoot the messenger kind of situation.
Definitely. I think that Lucy feels like someone's finally seeing her. She's not an amazing student, but she's finally getting good grades. There's a teacher who thinks she's smart and that she's interesting and really listens to what she has to say. And she doesn't think that it's anything more than that. She doesn't think it's sinister. And she's really upset because she sees LD as the person who's coming in to ruin this relationship, the one positive adult relationship that she has right now. And
what she sees as the one positive.
Yeah, obviously I'm not.
Sorry.
I am definitely not calling this.
No. This is Lucy's perspective.
Yeah, Lucy's perspective.
Yeah.
But then also at the end when she's like, see if I ever help you again, I just kind of wrote that trying to turn your friend into something that they're not isn't help. That was pretty much it. I just
it's not, but LD was kind of like wanting to do something different,
Yeah.
and Lucy offered to like kind of help because LD clearly
Yeah.
didn't know what her two ideas were: a high ponytail or a low ponytail. So before class the next day, Wheels finds Snake and Joey in the hallway to show them his new glasses and to ask what they think about them. Wheels kind of starts rambling, but Joey tells him that they're cool, very cool, but wants to make sure that he's not going to wear them on stage.
This is my look of the week.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's not even necessarily about the outfit. I just really wanted to zero in on Wheels and his new specs. I think he looks great. I love his choice of frame. It's very 1988, but it's also very 2020. Mary, you're pretty much wearing them right now.
And I'm also working on my mullet, much like Wheels is.
Exactly. I do love his denim jacket with his plaid shirt underneath. It's not anything to write home about, but he does always look good. But I think that the glasses, like I never had to worry about how people were going to perceive me with glasses because I was 4 when I got glasses. And so even when I started kindergarten, I had them. So I never really had to worry about like coming to school with a new pair of glasses or anything like that. What about you guys?
Yeah, I was in 2nd grade when I got glasses, so I remember feeling a little like awkward pressure and like thinking that it might be like weird, but also if I did feel really bad about it, I just don't remember because I was too young to really carry those memories, or it just like wasn't that big of a deal. So yeah, also I didn't really have to worry about like the like emotional or like social pressure that comes with probably getting glasses at this age.
Yeah, I only wear glasses when I'm using the computer. But I guess I would have had a similar experience when I got braces. Showing up to school with braces for the first time is not a great experience.
Also, you kind of skipped over this, but we get another shot outside of the school. Wheels walking up into the school, and Miss Avery pulls another bite and like does a little shoulder touch. And then when they're talking about like, well, just don't wear your glasses on stage, she's like, what about John Lennon?
Who's ever heard of a rock star in glasses, right?
What about John Lennon?
Who? Don't worry, some guy from the 60s.
60s?
Yeah.
Also in this scene, I think we start to see Joey and Snake are sort of becoming closer friends and sort of leaving Wheels out a little bit.
Oh.
More band dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
3 people is good because that's what makes the tricycle go.
Absolutely.
Wow, yeah.
It's nice to be the third wheel.
Such a supportive role.
It's crucial.
Role, if you will.
Oh. Also, Wheels.
Oh!
Alexa returns Steph's sexy clothes because her mom found them, and now she's grounded for 2 weeks. And if her mom ever finds them again, she'll be grounded for 2 years.
Her mom slut-shamed her and told her she looked like, and I quote, a lady of the evening.
I love that Steph.
Then Steph's response is, oh, it's a shame. They looked so good on you too. Which, by the way, I'm not just being paranoid, right? Like she's definitely saying she looked bad in them.
Oh, she's just being an asshole.
She's
right
throwing
now.
immense shade.
No, yeah. She obviously does not mean that.
I couldn't tell if it was just because she was like jealous.
You're just jealous.
Or if she actually was just trying to tell Alexa that she was ugly or something. But Alexa looks great.
Yeah, she's just being like sarcastic and pretending that she feels bad for her, but she's just glad that she's finally gotten her way.
They have like introduced a cursed item, and like Steph's clothes are just like cursed. Like they just can't. Whoever wears them, bad things happen.
Yeah, whenever someone pulls out that tube top, like the monkey paw just curls.
And even though Steph is a total asshole in this scene, she is actually wearing my look of the week.
Hey.
Tell me more.
So she's got on this sort of like denim blue blouse with like a black ribbon tied in a bow around the collar. It is a very good look. Maybe too good for Steph and her behavior.
I feel like you've had a ribbon in a bow type of look before?
Yes, I have.
Yes.
I don't have one currently, but I might have to make that happen now that I've been inspired by stuff.
Conjure it up.
So after Mr. Colby's class, he asks Lucy if she wants to stay
Nope.
behind to show him Mr. Radich's systems.
Nope.
No.
Yeah.
No.
She's all too eager to help him because she thinks that they're forming just like a regular sort of like bond. But yes, we all are feeling very concerned about this development.
Also, let me just like, what system
Yeah.
would Lucy be familiar with that Mr. Colby would not rather speak to, for example, a different teacher or the principal about?
A heinous lie.
Maybe it's his system of critiquing the students in front of each other.
Oh, right. I guess Mr. Colby does need some like primary research done in that area.
Great. Good.
Joey and Snake are bummed about Wheels not being able to play with them anymore when they hear somebody else playing bass. It's Simon, and they're all over him like Steph offering Joey the sports rep position.
More band relationship stuff going on here. This Simon dude is kind of a dick for just picking up what he knows is Wheels' bass. It's Wheels' bass that he's playing. He's got the little musical note strap and
I didn't even notice that.
Yes, that because at some other point in the episode, I think right before they step into the like practice room, they're talking about how they don't want to pack up their gear. So they must have some kind of like arrangement where they can leave their stuff set up in whatever room this is, which awesome. But so yeah, this little twerp just like rolls up and is just like, I'm just going to play this guy's bass, which like, bro, hands off the material. Yikes.
Yeah, that's not cool.
Sketch. Big time. Don't like it.
So while Wheels is being betrayed, he goes to his tutoring session with Miss Avery while Lucy is waiting for Mr. Colby to come back. Colby checks to make sure no one is around before closing the door and telling Lucy to sit down. He starts calling her mature and complimenting her and her paper while getting uncomfortably close. He brings up the loneliness in her paper and mentions how lonely he was when he got divorced and inappropriately starts touching her shoulder. Lucy and everyone watching is visibly uncomfortable.
Yikes!
All right, we got to get through this. It's the worst scene in the whole episode.
Okay, sorry.
All right, so back in... Please, I don't want to describe this any more than I have to. So back in Miss Avery's classroom, Wheels forgot a book, so he leaves to go get it. His locker is right next to Radich's classroom, so he sees Mr. Colby getting too close to Lucy, and he opens the door to interrupt them. Lucy runs off, and Wheels gives Mr. Colby a look before leaving too.
Speaking of a look, this is my look of the week.
Oh!
First of all, I'll just say the outfit is pretty basic, but as you mentioned, his glasses, awesome. The mullet, working. Just some flannel and jeans. It's cool, but the reason this is my look of the week is because this dude is serving looks. He looks like a certified badass when he just stares down this creeper.
Oh, absolutely.
The way that he looks like a superhero. It's sort of like, I don't know if this is any specific plot to like a comic book series or whatever, but it's like when a nerd gets superpowers, but then the real lesson is that they had the strength in them the whole time. Like this dude is just like realizing that these glasses are giving him super abilities, and he just looks like oh my god, he looks so cool. And this teacher is like terrified of this kid, which is also cool because he should be. Creep.
Yeah, because he just got caught.
Hell yeah.
In my notes, I wrote that he should possibly reconsider his decision to get glasses because he has now simply seen too much.
Oh boy.
Like, legitimately, here are the things that we did not discuss in this recap. Number one, Mr. Colby is rubbing Lucy's shoulders. Number two, telling her not to be so tense. Number three, rubbing her scarf and telling her that silk is a sensuous material.
Hands off the merchandise.
And then when Wheels comes in, he yells at him. He's like, Derek, what are you doing here? And he's really mad that he's been interrupted. And then when Lucy takes that opportunity to remove herself from the situation, he's like, I'm glad we had this talk, Lucy.
Nice try. Nice try, dude.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
So this scene, I think, once again, though, is drawing the parallels with Miss Avery and this guy, because she closed the door on Caitlin Ryan when they had their little like talk at the end of that, like, is she a lesbian episode or whatever. And it was just as creepy then. It was just as creepy. And so,
but I think we're not supposed, I think we are supposed to be seeing that as, I don't
know,
separate and different. I honestly do. I think
yeah.
that they are juxtaposing the two and saying, well, it was okay because Miss Avery didn't have any kind of like malicious intention, and she and Caitlin were having a serious talk that needed privacy. Yeah. Like, I honestly think that that's kind of the message we're supposed to be getting from this. It's not the message that I'm taking away from it.
Yeah, like
but that's what I think
the writers intended. I like the way I saw it was different, but I get that totally.
I really think it's just sexist. It's just this idea that men are threatening and women are not.
Women can't be predatory, even though how many news stories do we see every year where like a teacher has like her student's baby or
we
something.
Are still in the 80s, and I think that a lot of those stories started to break more in the 90s, right? Like I think that's when like Mary Kay Letourneau, like that was like a major story, and now it does feel like we hear about it like all the time. So I think that it's like a product of its time, and like it's just the thinking then was just like men are threatening and like women are not, and it's just so like wrong-headed.
I can't believe you remembered her
name.
Oh,
absolutely. I'm almost positive there's a Lifetime movie.
If there is, you've seen it twice.
At least.
We got to move on.
So
please.
When Lucy gets home, she calls out for her mom and dad, but as usual, they're running late and they're not there. Lucy cries as she plays a message from her mom congratulating her on her recent grades. There's a knock on the door and it's LD. She's returning Lucy's scarf and notices that she's crying and asks what's wrong as she hugs her.
First of all, super normal way to communicate with your kid, to just constantly leave everything you want to say to her on an answering machine. Second of all, I love that LD has a bit of emotional intelligence here. Because I feel like her showing up to return the scarf was really weird, because like they'd just gotten in this big fight. Like you would have thought that maybe she would have just like given it back to Lucy in class or something, or slipped it in her locker. So it's a little strange that she showed up to her house, but like it's a good thing she did, because Lucy is just as usual all alone.
This scene would have been so dark without that. Like
I think that the scarf was just an excuse to go to talk to her and to try to make up with her.
Yeah.
Who did you think was at the door when you heard the knock?
I really thought it was the teacher for a second, and I don't know why, but I got like tense when the doorbell rang.
I thought it was going to be Wheels telling her like, you have to report this, you have to do something about this.
Ooh, I'll.
But that's not. That's not Wheels's way.
I have a thought about that I'll share later.
I think that. Because I did say, Paul did, like, he audibly was like, is it the teacher? But I was like, I don't think he would know where Lucy lives. So I kind of more so thought it was someone who had been to her house before, which could have been either LD or Wheels, because they've both been there for parties.
Everyone's been there.
I was happy to have been proven wrong. I
am too.
Oh, yeah, that would have been... That probably would have been darker than Degrassi was even going to go.
It's just what I thought...
Yeah, and we don't know whether Lucy tells LD what's going on or anything. Like right now, she's really just she's maybe not even ready to talk about it. She really just needs a friend, and like LD is there for her, which is good. So the next day at school, Snake and Joey tell Wheels that they got a new bass player, Wheels asks what happens when he comes back, and they tell him that they'll have 2 bass players.
Sure.
I really like that they show Wheels walking up to school with Spike because it's a nod to that friendship. And, you know, you were saying earlier that Joey and Snake seem to be really close and that Wheels is sort of maybe on the outside of that. But what I think we're seeing in this episode, and in actually across many episodes, is that Wheels is actually kind of the glue that's holding so many different people together. He's someone that Spike is confided in. He's somebody that has talked to so many different people and is part of so many different interactions. And, you know, Wheels is just kind of friends with everyone. Whereas it feels like Joey and Snake really only have each other and their band. Like Wheels seems to just have a lot of stuff going on and a lot of people that maybe he feels need him.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I mean? Like, and now, you know, now he's part of what's going on with Lucy and he's needing to be responsible.
No wonder this kid can't pay attention in school. That's a lot.
Right?
Oh my God.
He's everybody's therapist.
Yikes.
And yeah, he is forming friendships with the girls. And initially that kind of seemed like Joey, but Joey was really only in it because he was doing that classic, like, oh yeah, I'm friends with Steph, but it was really just because he was trying to date her. But Wheels is actually friends with the girls around him. And, you know, like anyone knows, like girls are, you know, often better friends. So that's where he's pursuing his friendships. They probably would not give him a hard time about studying.
No, or like his glasses.
Or his glasses, or replacing him. Which also, does Simon have his own bass, or is he just gonna play Wheels bass in this in the Zit Remedy 2.0?
I'm sure we'll find out.
Good question. Yeah, I feel like we'll find out, or I hope we do.
So Mr. Colby sees Lucy in the hallway and says good morning. He asks if she wants to try again to teach him Radish's systems after school, and she tells him, not in a million years.
Hey.
Hell yeah.
Wheels finds Lucy before class and asks how she's feeling. He tells her he saw Colby touch her, and if she needs a witness, he would support her. The episode ends on a freeze frame of Lucy.
Hell yeah. Wheels is such a good pal.
Even with, like, he doesn't lose any confidence with getting these glasses, and his, like, kind of closer friends treating him weird because of that. He's still able to, like, compartmentalize that and be, like, a real one for Lucy.
Right. He's not, like, totally focused on himself and, like, whatever's going on with him. Like, maybe someone like Joey might be if he had to, you know, change his appearance in some way that he, like, wasn't choosing necessarily. And he also only really seems concerned about Joey and Snake's opinion. And Snake is actually kind of rude about the glasses.
Yeah.
But yeah, Wheels, you know, once again is just like a true ally to his girlfriends. And Lucy's like smiling at the end, I think, because now she knows that like she has LD, and not only does she have LD, but she also has Wheels. So she has 2 people who are specifically like, I see what's going on and like, I'm here for you.
Well, also because in the stairwell when Lucy ran into Colby, he says that he's sorry about yesterday and then says not that anything happened, of course. And so he's like totally gaslighting
He's trying to like
her.
brainwash her. Yeah.
Yeah, he wants her to question the reality of what happened. He wants her to question her feelings and her lived experiences. And Wheels is affirming to Lucy that what she thinks happened did happen.
Right.
He saw it, and he just wants her to be okay.
Right. He just walks up to her and just asks how she is. It's like so sweet. He doesn't say anything else about it, or tell her what to do or anything like that. He's just like, he saw what happened and he really is just like, are you okay?
Yeah, he says, how do you feel?
That Wheels. What a friend.
MVP.
Can't relate.
I related to LD in this episode. Like the way she was supportive of Lucy even after they like got in a fight was cool. Must have been, and it like must have been hard. Like that's like you were saying, like she must have a lot of emotional intelligence to be able to just like see past that fight and like still check in on her. That was cool. I loved that.
Yeah, I actually think she kind of was like that's not the way that I was hoping that would go. But instead of taking it personally, she was like, so I'm going to follow up on that.
Yeah. Good for her.
What about you, LD?
So I related to both Wheels and LD. I felt like they both recognize that something is wrong with Mr. Colby, and both of them try to be there for Lucy without trying to pressure her into doing anything specific. Or because I feel like if this were a newer episode, if this were airing now, there'd be a lot of emphasis on like reporting, whereas it's very much in the last conversation of the episode where Wheels just kind of, if you want, I can be a witness. And I loved that LD was just kind of like noticing here and there throughout the episode, and then did tell Lucy when she saw something that she found troubling. And yeah, I like that she set aside her own stuff when she needed to be there for her pal.
Unfortunately, I related to Lucy in this episode, not in her interactions with Mr. Colby, but because she's really struggling with feeling alone, but also feels like she has to act like she's okay with it for other people's benefit. And it's sort of the trap of loneliness because you feel like it's off-putting to other people, so you don't want to tell them about it, but not talking about it also makes those feelings more intense and makes you feel even more isolated.
And also, I think when you're a teenager, and I'm speaking as someone, who I didn't really have a lot of parental supervision, like you want your parents to care about you and want to be around you, even though you're a teenager and that's kind of not cool. You still need them. There's a weird sort of push and pull with that. And there's a lot of pressure to feel like okay, or to make other people feel like you're okay, because you don't really want to have to be vulnerable or talk to people about it. I don't know. There's a lot of feelings.
Or feel like you're a problem. Like I could totally see like maybe her parents are really, apologetic about like, oh, sorry, we have to work so much. Like, but this case is really important or whatever. Aren't they lawyers or something? Their careers are clearly very important to them. So like she might feel like, oh, I don't want to just be another burden to my parents. And they're already upset about the shoplifting. So like, I don't want to like, create more problems for them. So, friends, what did we learn today?
Too much. We learned too much. Abuse of power is pervasive. Being there for your friends when they've been through something traumatic and reassuring them that it happened is important. Being an absent parent is bad. Trying to make your butch friend more femme is gross.
100% to everything you just said.
I think Wheels' actions toward the end of the episode really illustrated like a positive way to deal with what to do when witnessing some form of assault or misdeed. He didn't like physically intervene and potentially make the situation worse, but he did make sure that Lucy was able to escape the situation. And as you mentioned, LD, like instead of pressuring Lucy to take any sort of action, he just offered more support. I think especially for people who are raised as male, but also probably just as a result of our collective mental trauma living in a militarized, over-policed country like America, society assigns some kind of weird superhero complex to situations like this. And it can be really easy to convince yourself that fighting and adding additional pressure to a situation is the quote-unquote right response. And this episode of TV just gives us a really clear alternative to those feelings, and I'm here for it.
So today, I think we learned that there are people who will see you struggling and will try to take advantage of you, but there are also people who will see you struggling and will try to support you. It was difficult for Lucy to hear what LD was trying to tell her because she was being manipulated by an adult who was using her vulnerability to try to gain her trust. But LD knew that something wasn't right about their interactions and was willing to risk having Lucy be upset with her as long as it would help to protect her friend from harm. Wheels used bystander intervention to help Lucy to get out of an uncomfortable situation, and then followed up to ask how she was doing and to offer her support if she wanted to tell someone. But like you both said, no one pushed Lucy into making a decision, but both of her friends let her know that they were there for her and that she wasn't truly alone.
You can listen to I'm Sorry, Okay, a Degrassi podcast on Acast, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you enjoy what we're doing here at I'm Sorry, Okay, be sure to give us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts.
So thanks for listening. You can follow us on social media at I'm Sorry Okay Pod. OK is OKAY, and email us at I'mSorryOkPod@gmail.com. That's it for A Helping Hand. Next week we'll be watching Great Expectations.